We're all works in progress. Join me, Jenn Hart, as I wander creator spaces across the U.S. to meet artists, musicians, makers, and creatives of all kinds, to hear their stories and to find out what inspires them. We'll also play a game of 10 questions. Keep track if you like, and we'll count them up at the end. The nice thing is that the only one that can really lose this game by not getting to 10 is me. And we all get to win by meeting some seriously talented people. I can only see good things coming. I tend to pour my feelings out in rainbows. I've always been that way with my work. Get your heart stomped out, tie it to a heart-shaped balloon, and set it free. Disappointing day, slap a rainbow on it, and watch that neon rain fall across the page. That's how I express my darkness and my light. They play together. I really admire people that can truly be vulnerable and capture that vulnerability in their work. It's tough to willingly reveal heavy parts of ourselves, the parts that sink to the bottom and get buried, so we can try to forget them, especially when those are the parts most of us hope to leave at the bottom. Chelsey Luster, exhibition manager at Philadelphia Magic Gardens, builds thoughtful, intentional spaces for other artists in the Magic Gardens gallery. And for herself, well, she paints deeply complex themes. During this episode, she shared her process for creating her latest collection, in which she dives into those buried, bottom-lurking feelings with her subjects to express what a safe place looks like to them. We had a few surprises while recording at Magic Gardens. Part of the fun and challenge of this show has been doing it essentially live at the makerspace. It leaves some room for spontaneity, given myself and the photographer that we work with in each city likely has not been to the space until the day of the recording. You'll hear it, but let's just say there's some unexpected interruptions. Those moments are some of my favorites, though, because it's part of what makes this show so special, in my opinion. It's real, and it's so rare to experience something real in the era we live in. It's just us and the guest in an hour to talk like two old friends, and everyone gets a peek in. When you remove the controls like this, and frankly, the way that Chelsey does in her work, it opens the door or maybe just cracks the window enough to invite the possibility of something really memorable to reveal itself. I am extremely stoked to be doing this podcast in the basement of Isaiah Zagar's Magic Gardens in Philadelphia. I didn't even know that this was here, so that's kind of crazy. I've been to the Magic Gardens before, but never down into the basement. And I think you can do tours down here, but it wasn't something I was aware of. So this is really cool. It's kind of like walking around inside Isaiah's brain a little bit. Hopefully that's a compliment to him. But even more exciting is that we are here interviewing Chelsey Luster, who is the exhibition manager here at the Philadelphia Magic Gardens. She's an incredible artist, creating art for mixed media on giant canvases, which when you look at her website, you can see all the amazing work she's already done. I did not know that they were giant, so I'm excited to hear more about what the creation process is like for that. So far, what I do know about her, she's a recipient of the Catherine Panpacker Curatorial Fellow from Da Vinci Art Alliance and a former Vox Populi member. Thank you for being on the show. This
Thank
is
you for
amazing.
having me.
And thank you for inviting us into the space and showing us around and letting us kind of wander and be kids for a little while, like skipping through the, the tunnels and magic gardens. Very, very cool. I'll admit, I was a little nervous for this interview, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I just, you feel like a phenom to me a little bit. Like you're doing like so amazing and like, peeking through all your portfolio. I love this space, the Magic Garden. Originally when I reached out, obviously was very excited to do it in the space. But then the more I learned about you, the more I got excited for this interview, because I also think that the work that you're doing as an artist outside of your curatorial work, which is also very artistic, is very exciting too, and the layers that you're building into that. So I can't wait to learn more.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you, coming to the space and wanting to talk to me about my practice as a curator and also as an artist, because they're so intertwined and so important. People always ask me like, do I love painting more, making my own work more, or do I love curating more? And I love them both equally. So I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yay! Well, so I would love to start there, actually. Thank you for the open.
Yes, of course.
You're the first curator I think I've ever met, like really taught, like had a very a conversation with. How did you get here? How did you decide that that is a thing that you wanted to do?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. So, like you said, I went to Temple University and studied at Tyler School of Art. So I was studying painting for my bachelor's, and I love painting. But I was also thinking, what do I want to do post grad? Like, do I want to solely rely on my creativity when it comes to like creating work, creating paintings for my income, or do I want to do something else?
Yeah.
So I decided that I wanted to find something else in the arts that I could sustain myself with, and also, could be interested in and be passionate about. So then I could make my art freely.
Right.
So that's when I just started doing a bunch of internships and taking a bunch of other classes. So I took a contemporary curatorial class when I was studying abroad in Italy, and decided that I wanted to take this path. So
what an insanely cool place to do that internship.
Yeah, it was really good. So after that, I decided to come back, do a bunch of internships. I curated a show at Tyler while I was there at their student-run galleries, and then it really all started there. I graduated and was cold emailing galleries to curate shows, and eventually got one. And from there, I did fellowships and residencies where I met artists and curated their work. And eventually, after 4 years of independent curating while doing odd jobs or other jobs, I got this job at Magic Gardens.
Oh my gosh. Italy was like very high on my list of like, I don't really care what it takes for me to get there. Like I was a poor student. Like I need to go to Italy because that is where the art, when you're learning about it, it just feels like a lot of the big art is there, right? What was that like to be in a place where people fantasize? I mean, you hear me, I've been there and I'm still fantasizing about it. So what was that like for you?
It was definitely groundbreaking. I mean, like you said, there's so much history in Italy when it comes to art. So you can walk into a church and see, a Michelangelo piece. So it definitely turned my perspective upside down about curating, because you can see these giant sculptures, painters by like some of the greatest artists in the world, but you can also see contemporary work by people responding to that.
Yeah.
So it definitely opened up my mind, and focusing on contemporary art in Italy really showed how multifaceted Italian art is, and how we do have these big names that we all think of that we can see everywhere, but they're also they're also influencing the contemporary art scene, and the people that are testing the limits of what society in Italy is like right now. So definitely it was very formative for how I viewed art, and probably one of the reasons why I'm so interested in emerging artists and like that that beginning art scene where people are experimenting and brave.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. And making something sometimes out of nothing, like without the resources sometimes. Like that's really interesting to me. And I feel like I got that from a lot of contemporary art in Italy.
Yeah. That's a really cool perspective too, because what brings people to Italy a lot of the time I think is that kind of those old world pieces, right? But then when you get there, you can't help but see all of the other art that's been influenced by those pieces and the way it's sort of evolved over time. So that's very cool. Would you have continued down that path had you not gone on that trip, you think? Or is there any way to I guess you don't have a crystal ball, but
no, yeah, I probably still would have. I mean, I love making art, but I also love other artists. I've always loved other artists and the community that comes with being an artist and surrounding yourself with people. I mean, I love making art, but I also love other artists. I've always loved other artists and the community that comes with being an artist and surrounding yourself with people. DIY spaces and, major museums, but also smaller galleries or big galleries. Like, I think being in Philly, I would definitely still find curating in some capacity.
The spectrum of art here is like super inspiring.
Absolutely.
It's so cool. Being fairly new to Philly, but already feeling home here, it's been really cool and refreshing just, to see that, like those big, like, yes, there are these big museums and there's collectives, but there's also tiny galleries that like communities support and like are really like people are all in on the art scene here. And I love that so much. I love it so much because don't you think, there's something cool about just the collective, like, problem solving power of having that many creative people in one place?
Absolutely. I don't think that any artist can do it by themselves. I think a lot about my creative practice, and some of the biggest moments have been when I had a studio visit with someone who had a painting medium that I never used before, or I showed with an artist that really, challenged me and made me think larger than life, or I've been able to do that for someone else, especially with curating. So I think the collective power of artists is really what pushes the art scene forward in Philadelphia. There's no way anyone can do it by themselves. We just all need each other.
Yeah, definitely. As you're curating art, we talked a little bit about this before the show, that you're designing the space based on the art you're going to be showing and the artist's perspective, and I'm sure that they have some feedback for that as well, as most artists do. Can you think of a show that you've put together that you felt maybe influenced some of your own work?
Yes.
Level 10 question.
Yeah,
right?
So all of them, seriously. I can highlight a few. I curated a show with Chloe Louisa Pinero, who does these figurative collages that express sensuality and sexuality and are glittery and multifaceted and really playful with how they're created. And Chloe inspired me to use a lot of different materials that she was playing with. And to also think about my paintings as collages in a way. So definitely that inspired me. The show I have right now, Ritual of Self-Portraits by Isaiah Zagar on paper, those have inspired me because Isaiah was making a portrait pretty much every day for 20 years and has well over 2,000 portraits.
20 years?
Yeah. Every day he was making a portrait. Every day he's making a portrait, and they're beautiful. They're all about 24 by 30 inches, so they're also not the smallest portraits.
Yeah, they're sizable.
Yeah, but the materials that he uses inspired me, and also the act of making every day, because also while he's making these portraits, he's still mosaicing. He's still making, he's still traveling, making other bodies of work. So even the process of Isaiah has really inspired, my urgency to create. Every show has inspired me.
Wow. Yeah, now that you're talking about that, it seems like, how could you not be inspired, because it's every piece of art has a different message to give. So that's also, I love this is the kind of thing that I could really talk about all day, because I think I was telling you, I love getting into another artist's brain, but just like that idea that once you make art, like, you have something you're trying to say, but when someone else looks at it, they might hear something else is really cool, you know, that you're able to like speak to them using that language, but what you're saying might be something else that they might be hearing something else, you know. So that's really cool that you're continually getting that exposure and getting to experience that with other artists is really cool too. I'm like still reeling over 20 years of self-portraits because I can barely get a sketch in a day.
I know. I definitely, like, I paint a lot, I make work a lot, but not every single day. Not every single day.
What is your practice like?
So I usually will pick a model. I'm a portrait painter, so I'll usually pick a model. They're usually my friends, family, close people in my life. And I'll interview them, chat with them about what their safe space is internally or physically, whether it's like colors that make them feel secure, whether it's, you know, food that makes them feel secure, whether it's just like, what does a world without shame look like? It's all these questions that I'm asking them and interviewing them about. And then I'll set up a photo shoot with them, take photos of them in either a physical space that they feel comfortable in or like a mental space that I can kind of abstract.
Yeah.
And then I'll create paintings based off of that and creating their mental safe spaces and their physical safe spaces and kind of merging together in the work. And then I create the paintings.
Oh my gosh.
And I paint a lot. I don't paint every day all the time, but every month I'll probably make something.
That's so cool. I love that idea, like how you concept that and bring it to a final piece is really interesting. I feel like that would be a great coffee table. I feel like, okay, here's their interview and here's the picture and here's the painting. So that's very, very cool. Do you find it's easier to do that type of work with people that you're already intimately acquainted with, or have you tried doing it with a stranger or like someone that you haven't had like a conversation with yet?
I definitely find it easier with people that I know. Just because I already have that safe space between the both of us. They already trust me. They already really feel open enough to tell me those things. I haven't tried it with someone I don't know well. I don't know if I will, just because it is also asking a lot of people. I've received funding and grants, which is amazing, so I can pay my models for their time and for their energy and like take them out to dinner or cook for them. But to ask somebody like what makes them feel safe, you're also asking them, you know, what doesn't and about some of the hardest experiences in their life. And I personally feel comfortable asking people that I already know, where we already have that relationship built up and we have that trust. And I also care about them and I love them and I want them to have that space in a painting. I think one day I'll probably expand the body of work to other people, but for where I'm at right now, I definitely am focusing on the people that I know and people that I trust. And even when I do expand the body of work, or if I decide to, it would still be getting to know people for weeks or months or, you know, building up that trust before I ask them to tell me, you know, the best and hardest moments of their life.
There's a lot of vulnerability in that process. I feel like also in a way it's almost like you creating your safe space with that painting, that work, you know. So that's really cool. That body of work is so beautiful. When I was looking at some of the work before the show and when we got to preview the piece from is that from the same? Yeah, from the same collection. That I really love how when you paint you can really see like all the layers, but they all come together as like one piece. That work that's like visible in the painting is really cool because it makes me feel like I get to know, like I can see you working on the painting, you know what I mean? Like I can understand a little bit of that essence of the artist and the work. What type of mediums do you work with typically? Because there are several, right? Like there's the way that you're layering them.
Thank you. Thank you I appreciate that. Texture is really important to me. Layering is really important to me.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mostly am a painter, so I mostly work with acrylic paint or acrylic mediums, and also oil paint for usually the portraits of the people. I just started working with resin and
oh wow, that's
glitter.
a totally different.
Yeah, it's a totally different beast of a material, but it's been going really well.
Okay, cool.
And I work with vinyl, sometimes reflective vinyl, a lot of glitter.
Yeah.
Really anything. A lot of the materials are influenced by the models.
Sure.
So I paint as much as I can, but if I need to, add fur, for example, I'll add fur. Really, whatever it needs. I directed a film last year because it needed to be a film.
Oh, so, that's really cool.
Yeah, okay. I'm usually a painter, usually a 2D artist. I use marker and oil pastel and other materials. Oh my gosh. But usually, like, the base is painting.
Yeah.
The base is acrylic and oil, and sometimes it'll shift and change depending on what the work needs. That's always the base is paint.
So you're really letting the concept drive the medium in that case. That's almost fearless to me. Yeah. Like you aren't going in with like a preconceived idea of what you're going to be using. You're just, okay, we had this discussion, this is what I need to make, and now I'm going to figure out how to make that work on the canvas.
Yeah.
Is there a medium that you've worked with? You can hear the basement.
Yeah.
We're in the basement. Authenticity, people, come on. Is there a medium that you've worked with that that was the most challenging for you?
Yes. Last year I was getting ready for a solo show at Vox Populi, and I made 8 to 12 paintings of people in my life for them with the same series, people's safe spaces. And during that time, I was also curating outside of this space.
You're busy.
Yeah, I was busy. It was my busy season because not only do I curate at Magic Gardens, I also curate at other institutions. So I was curating a show centering Black hair at Icebox Project Space.
Oh, wow, okay.
So when I was working on that, I had a live performance at the opening reception where a woman was doing hair of her, like 3 of her children at the opening, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. She was amazing human being. And afterwards, we were talking, and she asked if I wanted to do, another project with her at some point. We really hit it off. She was fantastic.
I love that.
And she also has vitiligo, and she was like, I would love to do something centering vitiligo if you ever want to. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah, sounds good. And then I went home and I was like, oh no, I have to do another project. And I have to work with this woman. Like, it was maybe like a month before my solo show opened. No. And I was like, oh no.
What have I done?
No, like I just got inspired by it. If something needs to take more time, I'm okay with that. Sure. But I have that feeling where I had to.
There was a deadline.
I was like, I have a show coming up. I want her in it. And I also wanted, one of my closest friends I grew up with has vitiligo. Oh, okay. And they also were very similar people. And just like high energy, creative, beautiful, a bright light.
I also love
amazing humans. Yeah.
Don't you love when, because some people would see that as like something to hide, right? Like, or they would be embarrassed by it, or and who knows, like at some point in their life, maybe they were, but they've come to a place where they're like, no, this is who I am, and I am going to celebrate it, because what makes us different is what we should be celebrating. Yeah. So like, I love that so much, like that kind of mentality, and just being, it's just such a positive, inspirational message to give to people that like, nobody has to like let anything limit them. You can be and do whatever you want to do. Yeah. Just be brave enough to put it out there. Yeah. And if somebody makes fun of you, then that's one person in a billion people, so you're fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're both so inspiring. It's just like human beings. So to also be so bright and vibrant, and also to grow up with like one of my closest friends who I've watched her journey and like watched her, become such a vibrant, she's always been vibrant, but watch her like really come into herself, like from middle school to like
which now, I'm sure was a struggle, right? And painful, right? Because I mean, I mean, it's easy for me to be like, if someone makes fun of you, it's whatever, but we've all been in that situation where if someone cuts you deep, like that can hard. And sometimes when you're, at a formative age like that, when you're at you're in junior high, you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're going to do and what's next, and you're getting hit with all the emotions that come with that. So like that could be that could put you in a cage for a while, I would imagine, if it hits at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So
it's already hard to like just be a woman, specifically like a Black woman growing up and just like going through adolescence. So like to go be by her side, going through our childhood and our adulthood together, and just like be with her and still be her best friend was just like magical. And I just knew I wanted to do a project with her and this woman and just like introduce them. And then I was like, I have to make a film. And I don't have really any background in film. I don't have any film equipment. I didn't have a camera that would work. I didn't have mics. I didn't have anything. So I reached out. Out to everyone I could. I called my fiance and my best friend to make sure that I wasn't doing too much and that I wasn't burning myself out. They both said that I was okay, that I should do it if I feel it. And then I went forward. I asked the team at Icebox if they had video equipment. They did. They had everything.
Oh, that's really cool. They let you borrow their equipment.
They let me borrow everything. They set it up with me. I asked, the woman's name is Johanna. I asked Johanna and I asked my friend John A. if they wanted to do it, if they could come down within a week and I would pay them and pay for their transportation. They both said yes. And then we did it. We filmed it. I edited. I did a lot of research. And it was just a beautiful, candid conversation between them. I just got to sit there
and be a witness to it.
Witness to like community growing, into their relationship forming, and get to make that into a film and then show it at my solo show within a month. Really,
really, really special. And especially, I mean, even more so, I'm sure, like so personal for you too, knowing that when your best friend was sitting there, in this film. Yeah. And that she got to do, this is a person that's like been on the ride with you the whole time, and now she's also getting to be in your show. So that's really cool too.
It was really special. And I had painted her I painted my friend John A like 5 times before. Like she's been in my work, but in a way where she just had a platform to talk and meet someone. It was so beautiful. And also probably the most challenging, because I had not worked with video in that way, and I was also curating multiple other projects and making paintings. And then I made a painting of both of them. So it was just definitely just
lit by inspiration though, like truly. It's crazy what a person is capable of when you hit when that fire is lit and you're just like, I'm gonna do this, like I'm in go mode. Yeah,
that's like definitely more challenging for me sometimes than like not feeling like painting. Like when I really need to make something and I don't have time and I'm working like 12 to 14 hour days every day to like do something, that's always a challenge, but it's the best moments of my practice. But it's definitely a challenge.
Those are make it work moments, like Tim says.
Yes.
Where like I just gotta get it done. This is what's gotta happen. Yes. So, and I think too, like probably in that case, I would say, especially in a case where you're working with something so personal to you too, there's a pressure to like make it, maybe not perfect or maybe perfect, like your version of perfect, and working with a medium that you haven't worked before. And video is so different than any kind of like, paint or canvas or physical kind of art medium, because it's movement, right? And you're dealing with variables that you don't always have control over. Like having equipment, it helps. So that's so cool that you were able to borrow that equipment and get in a space that was set up for that. But wow, that's really cool. And I love how you just like fearlessly jumped into that. You're like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like this is what the project calls for. So
it was wild, but definitely well worth it.
Yeah. I like to ask this question, and since we're already kind of talking a little bit about your childhood, can you remember the first, like what's your first memory of making? Like where did it all come from? Or like, and it doesn't have to be painting, it could be anything, like your first spark of creativity.
Yeah, probably elementary school. And it's not that I remember the first moment of making, but I remember the first time of being recognized.
Okay.
And I think that was more transformative for me.
Okay.
I remember being in a art competition in elementary school at maybe like a local library or somewhere, and I won a prize for my painting. Oh. And I just remember feeling like, okay, I can do this. I didn't know what that was. I had no idea what being an artist was. I had no idea what really any job was, because you're in elementary school.
Your world is tiny at that point.
But I remember thinking, oh, I'm good at this, you know. And I always had encouragement from like my family and my teachers. But I remember that was a moment where I was like, people that don't know me know I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And maybe I can run with that. Maybe this is something I can keep doing. And that's one of the first moments.
I love that. I remember I also have a memory of an art school kind of thing where like we had to draw something, and you know, it was a little ribbon that they put whoever won. And it's such a like good, you're like, oh my gosh, like I did a thing.
Yeah, it means everything. It means everything. It makes you believe in yourself, you know.
For sure. To get recognized for something positive like that and have potentially have other people also inspired by that. So I think that's a big part of art for me too, personally, is just like being part of that inspiration train, you know, like trying to, it's a give and a take where you're like, you know, showing work and giving inspiration and then getting it back. So it's crazy how it can like morph your own work and like the phases of your work too. Did you always work with acrylic, or was that something that evolved over time?
Mostly oil. I mostly added acrylic because of the fluorescence that you can get with acrylic, and a lot of my work has neon and fluorescent colors in it. So I really incorporated the neon bases or like neon clouds and different elements for the acrylic, but mostly trained in oil painting.
That's really cool. Do you use that, the neon, as a way to reflect the light? Like, is that a reflective light kind of a technique, or?
It's more of like the signal of almost like caution tape. That's how I think about it. Or like a safety cone or something like that. It's more of like the symbol of proceed with caution, but also drawing attention. So like I want people to look at these spaces and see that, you know, they are sacred, they are, you know, safe. You should definitely like proceed with caution, almost like your mind gets triggered when you see caution tape, but also that they're still welcoming. They're still like, you know, drawing your attention for a reason. So that's more of how I think of it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's really beautiful. I want to, for a second, go back to your curating now, because I know we've talked a lot about your art, which I could literally talk about all day with you.
I could talk about both, so I'm excited to switch over.
Yeah, for sure. We walked the gardens, and then we walked through the 2 gallery spaces, and those are large spaces. Yeah. So I would imagine curating something like that for an artist would take some time. Like how long typically does it take you to curate a space like that, and what's that process like?
So I usually have my exhibition calendar planned out about 2 years.
Wow.
So we'll have one Isaiah Zagar show, and then we'll have 3 to 4 other shows with contemporary artists, usually responding to the space in a way. So folk artists, self-taught artists, mixed media artists, people that are really pushing material. Yeah. So I'll have that planned out 2 years. And then within like usually the year approaching, I start working with the artists, you know, doing studio visits, seeing what they're making, what they want to make, what they want the show to be about, thinking about colors for the walls and for the promo materials, thinking about the layout and what story we want to tell. Yeah. You know, the great thing about having 2 separate spaces for the galleries is that we can have a completely different story in the front and the back.
So we can have think about that, but that's really cool.
So we can have different shifts.
You're the curator.
Yes. We can have different shifts in mood. We can have, you know, daytime in the front, nighttime in the back. Yeah. We can really explore with how the, you know, show changes thematically as we move through the space. So 2 years is like the total answer for each artist, but that 1 year leading up was when it's like, okay, what are we gonna do?
Go time.
Yeah, it's a lot of collaboration. You know, like I do have strong vision as a curator and a painter, and having that background, but a lot of it is pulling from the work that the artists are making and also just talking to them and seeing what their opinions are. We always find a happy medium. Or there's some artists that want me to do everything, and I will. And there's some artists that, want to work together, and I will. I also am just making sure that the artists are getting what they want, the experience of what they want. Like, I'm very much an artist. When I'm making paintings, I don't want to curate anything. I want to drop off the work. You all put up the text. You all can write about it. You all can pick the wall colors. I'm very much hands off when it comes to my work. So it's really, it depends on what the artist wants to do and how much, time they really want to give me to work with them.
Yeah.
And, how much input they want on the show.
Are they typically, or maybe it varies, creating work specifically for these spaces, or is it work that is in their body of work that you're kind of curating and then putting in the spaces?
Usually 50-50.
Okay.
Some people will come, at the 2-year mark before the exhibition. They'll come by the space and they'll be completely inspired. They'll want to do something specific for the space, or some people have a body of work that already relates.
Yeah.
It really depends on the artist and what they want to do and what they have capacity to do. But we always, encourage people to push their work and whatever that means. If they want to create new work, great. I've had an artist come, Ashante Kendo, who's brilliant, super talented, and she came to the space and she creates these she creates
basement noises.
Yes. She came to the space and she created, she has all these abstract, beautiful paintings that are, look like waves in the ocean, but also waves like hair. So she came into the space and she was like, oh, I want to do something with barrettes and like all these other pieces, but I'm nervous. And I was like, please do it. This is the time to try it, because it's such a visual space that like you can experiment. So she did, and that was really great.
Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I could almost picture, I don't know, I didn't see the actual exhibition, so I don't know if it looked like this, but I can picture just that visual of like hair looking like water and like spilling off of the canvas almost like onto the wall. Have you, I know we also said that we're talking and they're like kind of like your babies.
Yeah.
But like, do you have a favorite? Or I have to ask.
Oh my goodness. I don't have a favorite exhibition, but I do have favorite moments with the curatorial process. I worked with a Philly-based artist named Jenn Diamante, who's brilliant, makes a lot of self-portraits, and also frames them with flames and adds glitter and mixed medium, and they're vibrant and just they're gorgeous. I've been a fan of their work for a while. That's cool. So working with them was probably one of the highlights of my career. They were, they were really open to experimenting. They're really open to making the space immersive. Yeah. And it was definitely one of those moments where it really mattered that I was also an artist during the curatorial process, where, I could really limit the amount of labor that she was putting into the work. Like a lot of artists, if they want to paint something on the wall, if they want to, have a really large piece, they have to fund that themselves, or they have to do that themselves. Yeah. And I'm in a position where I can pay them for their time, but I can also have a team of people that can help, paint flames. Like we were painting flames on the wall for a while for her work. So it's one of those things where we can collaborate and make someone's vision come true. And with that show specifically, I feel like I was really strong in gauging, what she wanted to do, and also find that balance of like, hey, are you saying no to this idea because you think I'm gonna make you do it by yourself, because you don't? And like having
we have a team.
Yeah, we have a team. And like having her trust in me, and also letting, having her let go of some of the labor that artists are expected to do for free. Right. And also just being able to pay her. That was one of my favorite experiences. And also she's early in her career, so like it felt very formative for her career, and to know that, she should be working with spaces that want to help her. And people shouldn't ask artists for free labor. They really shouldn't. So it was definitely one of those very formative moments in my career where I had a good balance of supporting artists, like physically, financially, and emotionally. And the show looked great. Yeah. So that's all.
It sounds amazing.
The show was great. That was always a plus. But I think those moments where I can make someone's vision and dream even larger than they pictured because of, money or labor.
Mm-hmm.
Moments like that are definitely my favorite.
That's really, really awesome. You said something there about, not expecting artists to work for free. And I think it's so funny. I was talking with someone on my team before, like earlier last week when we were getting ready to prep for the show and stuff this week. And she was like, you're kind of doing like a death to the starving artist type of interview style thing.
Yes.
And I'm like, and it's true. Like we're going to these spaces and we're like, we have some sort of strange basement noise. You can definitely hear it, but that's the whole point. It's like, we are all works in progress, and someone that's early in their career is valuable in a different way than someone that's been doing it a long time. And maybe they don't get paid as much as the veteran that's been doing it for 30 years, but they should still be paid for their time and their work. And eventually the noise stops and you're able to get clarity, right?
Exactly.
Right when you need it.
See, I planned that out.
Yeah, I knew it. Chelsey is on it. She knows what's up. So it's really interesting to me because I think too as artists, and let me know if you agree with this, because you're obviously like well into your career now, like you're doing well, you're showing and you're actively curating as well. So you're working with artists all the time, but I think when you start in as an artist, just as a blanket statement, I think most artists have a hard time charging just in general. This is not part of their makeup as like a sensitive, emotional human being.
Yes.
Like, they're like,
yes.
Afraid to ask because they don't want to be rejected, or it's more important that for them to like be able to say the thing that they need to say in their work than it is to get paid to some degree. But they gotta eat.
Yes.
So like,
absolutely.
They need to eat.
Yes. People need to pay for art.
Yeah.
People need to pay for art. I mean, I think it's hard to ask artists to always, create these prices and charge, which they have to. I always encourage artists, please charge, but it's also hard for people to understand that they should pay artists, that it's not about, just the materials and the time. It's about the years of practice and education and concept, and it's all of that goes into the work. So yes, I want artists to charge more and charge, but also I want people to understand the value of art to the full extent, and I don't think that most people do.
I would agree with that, and I would go even a step further and say that I don't know that people understand the value of an artist's brain, because to me these are arguably some of the most creative people in the world. They see the world in a way that others can't see it. They have a different perspective, and could you imagine harnessing that together? Like talking about the beginning of the show, like bringing people together to create art, and like if you were able to harness that and put those people into a place together where they could collaborate and be well paid and able to like really flourish, like what could we solve? Like line the problems up. Let's get them like, you know what I mean? I just think there's so much there's so much unexplored talent there that goes even beyond just the beauty and inspiration that comes from art, which I love on its own. I think could stand on its own, but I think there's even more there that we're not tapping into and could be tapping into as a whole, as a society. So
absolutely, I completely agree. Artists will make way more art if they're paid well,
right?
And they're not worried about their bills. That's like everybody. Everyone will be so much happier if they weren't worried about their bills. But specifically artists, where it's way more challenging to get paid fairly or to get consistent income from your practice.
And then sometimes it takes years to get to a point where you can even just pay your basic bills, like
absolutely
rent and food and maybe car.
Absolutely.
Unless you live in the city, and then you can walk.
Yes.
Which is actually one of the things I love about living here. But
Philly's so walkable today.
It's so walkable. I'm also curious about where you find inspiration. Your day work and your personal work are both very tied to creative process and art and design and all of those aspects of your artistic brain. Where do you go to fill your well, or is that also filling your well? I don't know, maybe they're the same.
That's a really good question. I would say a lot of my creative process is filled by art and like seeing other artists, but also like my relationships with people. That's probably why I create so much work about people that I know, because I get to hang out with them and spend time with them and like really, you know, have great moments with my friends, but still make my work and feel my practice. I also like going to the spa and I love the spa. I love, you know, like going for walks in nature and just kind of unplugging. But yeah, I mean, I love art. Art inspires me. It's so much of my identity at this point. It's so much of my everyday. But definitely when I'm getting burnt out and exhausted, I go to the spa or go outside or just like turn it all off for a little bit. Yeah.
To give your brain a little room to breathe occasionally.
And it's just, I try to ground myself and take breaks from the busyness of the art world and the world I've created for myself.
That's so cool, though. It seems like you really, really love what you do, and I can feel it like vibrating off of you when you talk about what you do. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm really lucky, and like to be a person that was encouraged to be creative my entire life. Like,
having a support system
oh my goodness,
is so valuable, and I don't think you realize it until you're older, like how much of an impact that makes when you do have it.
Absolutely. There are so many people I meet that tell me, you know, how they wanted to be an artist, but then this happened, or you know, how they used to paint, but then this happened, and like the support has to be long term. It's like I've been supported in my creative practice as a child and as a teenager and as a young adult, and like that support, you know, I'm at the place in my life where I don't need it.
Yeah, now you can give it.
Now I can give it, but having that support from a young age and throughout every step of my life, and having like my mom who always believed in me, my family and my friends, like that was transformative and monumental, and is the reason why I can even do any of this. So, you know,
I can relate to that so much.
Yeah,
because when you fall, because you fall,
you do.
You need that person. Most people need that person that's going to be like, okay, that's okay. Yeah. Like, we're going to help you back up, and then let's do it again. Like, let's try something else.
Yeah. People always think that. Well, this might be an assumption I'm making about people, but I think people forget how fragile artists are and how fragile everyone is, and that at any moment people can stop creating. So like,
and it doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much.
Which is scary.
Yeah. When COVID happened, I was like, I'm not going to be a curator. I cannot curate online forever. I cannot. They're never going to open galleries again. I can't do it. And one of my friends was like, girl, it's fine. You're going to be fine. But yeah, I think people forget how fragile a creative process is, and that it can take
and the anxiety like that taps into what you were talking about, tapped right into my own anxieties of like that you sometimes need somebody to be like, stop, it's gonna be fine, like you'll be fine, keep going.
Definitely.
To get out of your own way a little bit, but I'm so happy that you had and still have that in your life, because it's really, really helpful and important. I like to do a little thing at the end of the show where we sort of do like an artist tag, and I already feel like I'm gonna have to re-listen to this and write down all the names that you gave me already. Ooh, okay. But like, we would like for the next season to be able to tag in the artists that are featured artists on the show or you're friends with, or like appreciate or inspired by. So if you can give us one in Philly and one out of Philly.
Ooh, oh my goodness. 2.
Yeah, and I apologize because I usually do email ahead, but I was like, I'm gonna put them on the spot today.
No, that's great. I'm just trying to like limit down. I was about to be like, I can give you a list of like 30 people. I know. Okay, can I do curators and artists?
Absolutely. Okay. An artist doesn't have to be a painter. It's literally anything. Like I'd love to just showcase the most diverse piece of work, people from everywhere. Like I want it to be very like eclectic. So you give me whoever's inspiring you.
Okay. Let me think. Who's inspiring me right now? An artist. I just did a studio visit with an artist named Eustace Mamba, who's brilliant. So I'm gonna shout them out right now.
Eustace.
Eustace is brilliant. So that'll be my Philly person. And then outside of Philly, I'm going to do Ashante Kendall, who I mentioned earlier,
Okay.
who has the abstract pieces with the waves in the
Yeah,
hair.
that sounds cool.
Yeah, Ashante's brilliant in Brooklyn, very talented. And then for curators, in Philly, I'm going to shout out one of my close friends, but also brilliant event planner and curator, Vanessa Chandler. She's an incredible human and great curator, great event planner, fantastic. And then outside of Philly, let me think.
So hard, I feel like, when you start going through the list.
Yeah. There's one person that curates. I don't know. I think she just left the city, so I'm gonna shout her out. But her name is Zinzi Harley. She's a brilliant curator, and I think now she's in Texas.
Okay.
But she also, I think she's back and forth between Philly and Texas. But yeah, Zinzi's brilliant and
amazing.
Great at all the things. Has her own magazine. Like,
oh, that's cool.
Brilliant. So yeah,
awesome.
those will be my shout outs.
Okay, I can't wait to look them up. That's super cool. Well, thank you again so much for sharing this world and your world with us, and inviting us down to see everything. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for all the great questions.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming and stepping into our world.
Yeah, I love it so much. If you were following along and counted up my questions, head over to TikTok at the Artist 10 Podcast and comment how many you think I got. I will not guarantee there'll be 10, but we will follow this week with a total. And if you're an artist, designer, or creative, please leave us a question in the same comment, and we'll pick a few to read and answer on the show next time. Even the best things must come to an end, but don't worry, we'll be back, and with more inspo, know-how, and creative collabs. In the meantime, tag along with us on Instagram at Hearthouse Creative or TikTok at the Artist 10 Podcast. Please click that follow button and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you feed your brain from. Thanks for listening. I'm Jenn Hart. Keep creating, artists. This episode of the Artist 10 Podcast was recorded at the Philadelphia Magic Gardens. Big thanks to Isaiah Zagar and his amazing team for allowing us to wander his world for a bit. The show was produced by Hearthouse Creative. Photos and video content were captured by Kathy Berry at Beaumont Originals on Instagram. Learn more about this episode's featured artist, Chelsey Luster, by visiting at Chelsey Luster Art or at Philly Magic Gardens on Instagram. You can also follow Chelsey's work and where it's exhibiting at www.chelsealuster.com or www.phillymagicgardens.org. Visit the Philadelphia Magic Gardens to experience their rotating exhibitions created by Chelsey and her team, and be sure to stop by and see one of her own paintings on display at the Philadelphia Museum of Art in their brand new educational center.